Welcome back and thank you for watching. If you watch this video and do as I tell you to do, you will never miss another flight again. As I have said many times, I have been traveling the world professionally for more than 2 decades in the hopes of helping you make the most out of your next vacation. And this has everything to do with your flight times. So here we go, let's get started. The flight times for your next flight are really critical for you to understand exactly what they mean. Traditionally, we've been taught to talk about the departure time. And per segment of your trip, meaning from point A to point B, could be a connection, could be a direct flight, doesn't matter. We're talking about per segment. You will have a departure time, but you're also going to have a boarding time. You're also going to have a time en route. You're also going to have an arrival time. So you see, there's lots of times associated with that one segment of flight. And it's really important to understand why these times exist and how they relate to you. Let's go back and talk about your original booking. Let's pretend that you were going from, say, Nashville to Los Angeles, California. You go online, you look up the flights, and you see there's a flight. It's 6:30 a.m., 7:30 a.m., and 8:30 a.m. Are those arrival times? No, those are departure times. Are they boarding times listed there? No, those are your departure times. So you say, oh my gosh, I am going to take a 7:30 in the morning flight. Not the 6:30, but the 7:30. All right, well, associated with that 7:30 flight, what time do you think that flight boards? Now, this is a domestic flight, so what time do you think it boards? I'll give you a hint. It'll be about 6:45. 6:45 Central Standard Time, that's what time you're going to hear the...
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to begin boarding for Flight 1522 for non-stop service to Los Angeles, California.
Okay, perfect. 6:45. Now, from the time you booked that flight to the time you got to the airport, what time do you think you were thinking about the whole time? 7:30, not 6:45. So there's tip number 1 here. The next time you book a flight, instead of remembering your departure time, I want you to remember your boarding time. As you have seen before, it'll say right on the board, this flight may be closed 15 minutes prior to its scheduled departure time. Why is that? They don't mean that the aircraft door may be closed. They mean that the jetway door will most likely be closed 15 minutes prior. Why? Because they have to get that door closed, then they have to get the jetway away from the aircraft. They need to close the aircraft door. They have to get permission to be pushed back. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes if all things go well. That's why they say you need to be at your boarding gate about a half an hour prior to your scheduled departure. Now that's really important. You have to remember that you and your flight are participating in a very well-oiled machine, a symphony of flights that are traveling 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, all over the entire globe. And believe me when I tell you, those flights are timed to the minute. And if you don't believe me, on your next flight, when you're sitting in your seat and you're taxiing to the runway and the first officer or the captain gets on the loudspeaker and says, ladies and gentlemen, our scheduled flight time today, 1 hour and 16 minutes. We'll be up and over. Okay, that time is really important. That's from the time the wheels leave the earth to the time the wheels touch down again. In this case, the example I gave you was 1 hour and 16 minutes. Well, on your next flight, time them. Go ahead, open your phone up, hit the stopwatch, and just hit start the minute you think that those wheels left the ground. And you watch. If everything goes well, which it normally does, you'll touch down within 2 or 3 minutes, if not right on the button, to the scheduled flight time. So let's review. With any segment of flight, you've got 4 times that are critical for you to understand and know. That is your boarding time, departure time, your flight time, and your arrival time. For these and other helpful hints, just go to my website, that's erikthetravelguy.com. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more handy-dandy travel tips and hacks. Until next time, I'll see you in line at security. finally, a car that matches my personality.
From the olfactory creators of distinction comes a new fragrance, fresh from the French Riviera. Vacation. You'll be irresistibly relaxed with every mist. Vacation. Immerse you, yours, and everyone else around you when you escape to vacation. And when they ask you what you're wearing, tell them you're on vacation. Vacation, the premium economy of fragrances. Vacation.
Available at fine retailers everywhere.
This is John F. Kennedy International Airport on a typical evening. It's New York City's biggest and busiest airport. 9 terminals, about 175 gates, and approximately 500,000 takeoffs and landings per year. And this is one of Norwegian's Boeing 787 Dreamliners, which will be our home for the next 6.5 hours as we fly non-stop from New York to Stockholm, Sweden. The captain on tonight's flight is Norwegian's Director of Flight Operations, Johan Gauerman, an experienced aviator with 30-plus years on the flight deck.
Is it still as exciting as it was 30 years ago?
It is actually. It is because the Mother Nature is just changing all the time, and you have to the challenge with the weather and the environment and new technologies and so on. It is really. I still. It's like a child almost.
While our cast and crew arrived at JFK about 3 hours before our scheduled departure, as we do for any international flight, the Norwegian flight crew of 8 arrived about 90 minutes before pushback.
When you start planning a flight and you know you're going to do a flight,
yes.
When do you start thinking about that flight?
I think about it when I wake up at the crew hotel. We download the flight plan to our iPad. That's that time I start looking at the fuel figures, look at the weather, the routing, the aircraft, and so on.
Norwegian is considered a low-cost carrier in the industry. No frills, if you will. But while we might be skipping the caviar, passengers enjoy paying only for what they choose, which makes flying longer distances more accessible and more affordable. But the #1 expense of a flight to any airline is fuel. And the Dreamliner is considered one of the most fuel-efficient aircrafts in the sky and one of the most technologically advanced in the industry. As takeoff drew closer, the captain invited us to the flight deck.
The modern aircraft, the latest ones, have the head-up display.
Wow.
But you need to be right here to see the display here, and that is pretty much the same that as we have here, but it's in green.
But it's in green. Can I look in there?
Yeah, sure.
What do I see?
It's almost like a fighter pilot.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Tonight, this flight will be flying at 38,000 feet at 84% of the speed of sound with a good tailwind. Because this is considered a shorter long-haul flight, the captain and first officer will handle the flying duties. For longer long-haul flights, additional flight crew members are on board and operate the aircraft on a rotating schedule. And this secret compartment is so the off-duty flight crew can rest and relax out of public view. On the Dreamliner, flight attendants have a similar secret room at the back of the aircraft.
When you have strong winds, the advantage is that you have a shorter flight time, but the disadvantage, there might be some chops. But when I looked at the chart today, it is quite smooth actually.
Nice and smooth.
But still, there might be some small chops.
As passengers began to board, the captain invited Erik and Harry to get comfortable for the takeoff right from the flight deck.
Are you really going to let us sit in here for the takeoff?
Yeah, it can be.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
Yeah.
After a private safety demonstration from the first officer, final preparations for takeoff were made.
Is there an aircraft directly ahead of us, or no?
Yeah, there's one here.
Got it.
And that also gives us smoother ride because the weather is always below us.
Right.
So the computer actually takes into account the winds, the temperature, and the weight of the aircraft and everything. And then makes a calculation, the optimum level. The optimum level is 400, but on this direction we fly at 390.
So the computer is doing the flying, even up here now.
And right now the autopilot is flying the aircraft, and the computer is driving the autopilot.
Does the computer know what runway we're landing on?
Yes, because that's all programmed in the system.
Got it.
It knows the runway, it knows the minimums, it knows the speeds.
We'd been planning this trip for months, and my heart began to beat just a little faster as we talked with the tower, taxied, and then took to the skies at 160 knots in the calm of a clear September night. While some pilots, flight attendants, and other aviation experts may not think twice about a seemingly ordinary takeoff, for us, it was a moment in time from the city in the sky we'll never forget.